From ideas that have only been seen in the movies, to the initiatives that help improve our daily lives, introduced by outstanding scientists around the world. All were gathered in Hanoi and honored at the first Vietnamese-initiated International Science Technology Award, VinFuture Prize. The VinFuture Foundation was established to connect brilliant minds and kind hearts around the globe, promoting science to serve humanity and honor outstanding scientific works with high application, creating positive change for the lives of millions of people around the world. With a total prize pool of $4.5 million, the VinFuture Prize has become one of the most valuable annual awards in the world. In its inaugural year, VinFuture has received 599 quality nominations from more than 60 countries in 6 continents. Nearly 100 nominations came from the world's top 2% most cited scientists. The grand prize of $3 million for groundbreaking research proven to make lives better has been awarded to a group of 3 scientists behind the success of the mRNA vaccine technology. 3 special prizes, each valued at $500,000, dedicated to innovators with outstanding achievements in emerging fields, female innovators, and developing country innovators were respectively awarded to Professor Omar Yaghi for his work on discovering metal organic frameworks to solve environmental problems, Professor Junan Bao for her initiative of developing flexible electronics with the sensing properties of human skin, enhancing the quality of life of millions of people with disabilities. And a couple from South Africa, Drs. Karisha and Salim Abdul Karim, with the invention of a tenofovir-based gel that prevents sexual transmission of HIV. The initiatives and inventions honored at the event with the same goals of solving the challenges of mankind will bring Vietnam into the center of the global scientific community, contributing to positioning Vietnam as a destination of world science and technology. The event is also an inspiration to encourage scientists to constantly research and realize ideas to improve people's lives.
Hello and welcome to Talk Vietnam. For the first time ever, Vietnam has had this special prize that gathers the participation of global renowned scientists who came together, joined hands because they believe in the mission of serving humanity by science. And in this very special occasion, we had the opportunity to sit down with some of them to learn more about their journey to science and what the future is holding for Vietnam in terms of opportunities in the world's scientific map. Well, thank you, professors. In your opinion, what makes VinFuture Prize different from other prizes, sci-tech prizes?
So for me, as a scientist, and I have seen that we have great discovery, in science technology, but also because of my root come from Vietnam. I grew up in a small village for 16 years with no electricity.
Wow.
I have seen that, great technology out there that may not impact the farmer, the worker, the poor people. And so for me, I think the make the VinFuture Prize really different and stand out from other prizes, that we want science, discovery, technology that can impact many people, rich, poor, all alike. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Professor Friend?
Well, in the same way, I think it's so important to celebrate the journey, the connection from some unexpected, brilliant insight or discovery through to it being able to make a very beneficial impact worldwide. Sometimes, particularly in the West, we've tended to separate the two. We see science as a very pure activity, and somehow it just happens. But those stories as to how it happens are vital, and they're inspiring, and we know we need more of that to take us through dealing, say, with climate change.
Beautiful.
I would offer there are several major differences, and I'm hoping that the world really understands each and every one of them, because they say a lot of positive, strong, wonderful things about Vietnam. The first is that it is a very powerful prize. If you look at the categories, they're beautifully chosen. The prize is of a magnitude to get people's attention. And finally, the prize, the definition of the prize, which is, as we've already heard, which is to get from science through to impact, is a message to everyone involved in the scientific and technology endeavors, that they must never lose sight of the most important goal, which is the people at the end of the process. So this to me is a very heartwarming approach, and that's why I have such a positive feeling about it.
For me, I'm both a medical doctor and also a scientist, so it always reminds me that we celebrate the discoveries of the basic sciences. It may take years to really benefit people, for example, patients in the clinic. The prize is so special because it really is trying to recognize science, technology, and major discoveries that have made a difference to many people, both poor and rich. And I think this is a very special celebration that has not been done before. So, unique prize.
And it's from Vietnam. So, yes. Let's talk about the number of nominations. 599 nominations. What do you think about this number? Did you expect this number?
I'm really surprised and delighted that we had such a large number of really strong nominations from every continent. The total number of nominations is actually much larger than of perhaps nearby prizes that have been long established. And I think there was just such a clear understanding that to make these prizes special, it was absolutely necessary to reach widely. And that's reflected in the number of nominations.
Professor Sir Richard Henry Friend, FRS, holds the Cavendish Professorship of Physics at the University of Cambridge. Owning more than 20 patents and having written or co-authored over 1,000 prestigious scientific publications worldwide, Professor Sir Richard Henry Friend, FRS, is one of the most influential physicists in the world. His research on OLED has been used to develop flat screens, scroll screens, and motion screens for the future, with the most well-known application of his research being the OLED TV.
Professor Friend, you have a lifelong career in science. So what was the turning point of your science career?
Oh, I hope I've not just had one turning point. I think the pleasure of a scientific career is that you can carry on having turning points all the way through. But a turning point fairly early in my career was turning my back on what most of my colleagues in semiconductor physics were doing and working instead on a rather unpopular set of materials where very little was known. And it was a conscious step to journey into the unknown, which turned out well. It might have failed, but it did turn out well.
Thank you for your sharing.
Professor Nguyen Thuc Quinn is a professor in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry at the University of California, Santa Barbara, UCSB. She is among the top 1% highly cited researchers in material science and cross-field by Thomson Reuters and Clarivate Analytics. She was honored as the world's most influential scientific minds from 2015 to 2019. With the belief that technology should not be expensive, it should be affordable, especially for poor people, Professor Quinn's studies often focus on renewable energy and new materials for organic solar cell applications with high applicability in people's lives.
Professor Nguyen Thuc Quinn, what was the turning point of your science career?
I think in my scientific career, the turning point, actually, I wasn't interested to become a scientist. When I was in Vietnam, I actually really interested in world history and literature. So I came to America. For me, at the age of 21 without speaking English. And so I gravitated toward science courses, and I did really well. And so the turning point I remember very well were one physics professor I took the class with. He organized a field trip for us to go see the world's largest femtosecond laser spectroscopy. And after that trip, I came back. I knew that I want to pursue a career in science.
How old were you when that happened?
When that happened, I was 25 years old.
So why at 25 did you decide that, oh, you know, science but not history or literature?
I always have that curiosity. I always ask question why, and why. And I think I realized that pursue a career in science, that, you know, I always learn, I never stop learning, right? And so I think that curiosity that really helped me open my eye and say, okay, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Right. Oh, wow. So interesting.
Professor Albert P. Pisano is Dean of the Jacobs School of Engineering at the University of California, San Diego, UC San Diego. He is a co-inventor listed on more than 20 patents in MEMS, co-founder of 10 startup companies in the areas of transdermal drug delivery, transvascular drug delivery, MEMS manufacturing equipment, and motion sensors. In 2008, he was named one of the 100 notable people in the medical device industry by Medical Devices and Diagnostic Industry MD and DI magazine.
What about you, Professor Pisano? What was the turning point of your science career?
Well, in high school, I was very interested in philosophy and history, and so I think we share similar beginnings. But then I came across physics and algebra, and I realized that this is something I truly loved. When I went to college, I was momentarily discouraged in my second year because it was a very difficult curriculum. And so I had a cousin, and I think this is part of the influence of family that sometimes takes place. I had a cousin whose job was to blow glass, to make glass forms, but he made glass forms for carbon dioxide lasers for IBM research. And when he realized I was discouraged, he said, come visit me at work and I want to show you something. So the short version of the story is he showed me many wonderful things, and then he said, you don't get to do any of them unless you complete your education, because all I do is blow the glass. Everyone else works with the lasers. And so that's what put me on a strong path of studying and applying myself to the deeper understanding.
Professor Dong Van Chi, world-renowned hematologist, oncologist. He was born in a family with medical tradition in Vietnam. He is now the scientific director of the Ludwig Institute for Cancer Research, a gathering of international researchers with the goal of preventing and controlling cancer, with 6 centers spread across the US and 2 representative offices in Europe. His current work extends the role of MYC gene in cancer metabolism and the role of the circadian clock in metabolism and cancer.
What about you, Professor Dong Van Chi?
Yeah, so I grew up in a family where my father was a Vietnam's neurosurgeon. So I was very much exposed to the medical field. So I've always wanted to, grew up wanting to be a doctor. However, I realized that, you know, we can make a difference to patients by knowing what we know already. But I'm always very curious about what we don't know. And what we don't know, could that make a difference to people? So that's how I got into research. And I want to echo what Professor Friend said, which is I choose the turning points we've made in my career is to ask questions other people have not asked, to take the road not taken. And when you go down those roads, you get a lot of criticisms or skepticism when you start to discover new things that change the field. And people are very resistant to change, but over time, you have shifted the field, and that's one of the biggest pleasure of doing research. And then ultimately, hopefully, it'll make a difference to people.
Extreme temperatures kill 5 million people a year. Global sea levels have risen approximately 20 centimeters in the last century. 1/3 of that has come in just the last 2 decades. Declining sea ice and extreme weather wreaking havoc all over the world. Influenza, smallpox, malaria, the COVID-19 pandemic, with a death toll surpassing 5.5 million. 780 million people, 11% of the world's population, live in extreme poverty on less than $1.90 per day. Severe acute malnutrition is the direct cause of death for 2 million children every year.
Our addiction to fossil fuels is pushing humanity to the brink.
Encountering excessive lingering challenges, humanity's key to the future lies in science and technology, with scientific results now pioneering the frontiers of humankind, acting as a foundation of our society. Transitioning to renewable energy and reducing reliance on fossil fuels are key contributors to the mitigation of climate change and energy crisis. Vaccines and modern medical technologies have contributed to the battle against diseases. In fact, smallpox and polio, 2 dangerous viruses, have been completely eradicated. Scientific input of different kinds have been applied to agriculture, fisheries, and forestry, and to those rural, coastal, and urban ecosystems and human systems within which hunger and poverty persist. Science has helped us solve some of the most important challenges and has created opportunities that were unimaginable even a few years ago, solidifying its position as the key to humanity's future.
When you faced a challenge, how did you react to it?
One of the things we all do, I believe, is to ask many different questions that other people haven't asked. And you take these roads, there'll be some that will fail because not all your ideas will work.
Ask the right questions. So, Professor Pisano, yes?
Yes, I would offer the emotional side of the issue is that a challenge is actually an exciting opportunity. So if your mindset is that the challenges are welcome, these are the steps that you climb to get to higher altitude instead of doing the same at the level that you're at.
Is there any personal challenge maybe you face and you have to overcome it in order to do science?
I face many challenges in life, but like my colleague mentioned, if you use your challenge, you know, you know that by at the motivation to make you try harder, and you know when you get out of that, you overcome that challenge, you learn something new. And I think those are very important. I have students send me email from China, from India, from Africa, right? When you knock many doors, not all of them open for you, but there will be one that open for you, right? So they reaching out to me. I can spend a weekend to help the PhD application for a student from India I never met. Okay? So my encourage them, if you have a dream, you want to pursue your dream, don't let anything or anybody stop you from pursuing your dream. Reaching out to people for help, and somebody will help you.
Right. Professor Đặng Văn Trí, so you face many challenges in your career. What kept you motivated to overcome the challenges?
Well, you know, coming from a different country and living in the United States, you face different personal challenges of discrimination. But I think the biggest challenge for me really is to have new ideas that you have evidence to support and to convince the scientific community to accept it in it. But when you get rejection of your ideas, albeit with the right evidence, you have to persist. You have to stay with it. And you have to just keep at it, and then it will work. In the end, after a couple of decades, all of a sudden, your idea actually started something, and that's very pleased to look back that you've made a difference. So for me, I work in cancer research, and one of the big motivation I have, or many motivations, I've taken care of patients who, some of them, fortunately, survive, they're cured. but many don't. I mean, just many cancer patients still die, and that's always a motivation for me every day. How can you make a difference? You get up and think about what new ideas. And then personally, my older brother in 2011 died of cancer. And that was very difficult for me because as a cancer doctor and a cancer researcher, I felt very helpless that I can't help my brother. I had to travel with him from hospital to hospital and just try to get the best care. It turns out that the basic research that was done at that point, we now know that there was a drug that was being developed that could have taken care of him. He died from the cancer that year. And so it just reminds me that we have to invest in research. That's the way we can make lives better for everybody in the world. And that's what the VIN Future Prize really celebrates, is how do you incent and reward discoveries that make a difference to people. So I always remind myself of my brother. My father also died of cancer too, but many patients always remind me of every day why I do what I do.
For many decades, Vietnamese intellectuals have been known for achievements that are well recognized worldwide. With brilliant ideas and inventions, many overseas Vietnamese scientists and innovators have contributed to affirming Vietnam's creativity and intelligence wherever they go. This is a Vietnamese woman who's had a profound effect on the global information technology world and is one of the 10 best female speakers in the U.S. Holding dozens of patents in the semiconductor materials fields, Lê Duy Loan is the first woman and also the first Asian in history to get elected to the highest title, Senior Fellow at Texas Instruments, one of the 3 oldest technology corporations in the United States. Trinh Ngoc Phuc, a Vietnamese-Japanese engineer who invented the high-frequency ventilator for premature infants in Japan that once saved the life of a 22-week-old baby weighing 265 grams. From a lovely childhood dream of controlling everything using her mind, Thanh Le was determined to make the impossible come true with the creation of the Insight headset, which can read your mind by recording and analyzing your brain waves. This invention has helped a quadriplegic man realize his dream of racing in a Formula One, but not with his hands, only with his mind. PhD Nguyen Thanh Le, an inventor who owns nearly 300 patents for optochemical materials, returned from Canada to his homeland Vietnam, along with farmers applying technology in agriculture. He is considered a farmer scientist. Professor Chin Xuan Tuan, Professor Lu Lê Hung, and PhD Nguyen Trung Hien are Vietnamese Americans who have enrolled in the field of astrophysics with shocking discoveries about the origin of the universe and asteroids, winning many great global prizes. And there are many other Vietnamese-born scientists with outstanding talents who have left their own mark in the scientific world and are admired for their remarkable inventions, thereby contributing to global intellectual development.
What is your advice for people to stay curious and to stay creative and dare to think big so they can realize their dream?
The VIN Futures Prize teaches a lesson. If you focus on excellence and impact, you can have confidence that there will be recognition and possibly a reward. So from that, we all can take a lesson. 1, work hard to achieve excellence. 2, love people so that you do things for their benefit. And 3, yes, you have to have some confidence.
Thank you.
Professor Gerard Albert Moreau is a French scientist and pioneer in the field of electrical engineering and lasers. He is the winner of the 2018 Nobel Prize in Physics for his work with his doctoral student, Donna Strickland, on generating ultra-short, high-intensity laser pulses without destroying the amplifying material. This work can be found in applications including eye surgery and is expected to have a significant impact on cancer therapy and other physical research in the future.
Well, thank you, professors, for joining us. So, Professor Muru, we know that you are the Nobel winner of, at physics in 2018, and you are a leading scientist in electrics engineering and laser. Can you share a little bit here about the research that you are focusing on?
Well, yeah, I'm working on something which is extremely important. It's about energy. Trying to find a source of energy which is abundant, safe. Right now, I mean, renewable energy rely mostly on wind, on solar, on biomass, these kind of things. And we are neglecting, of course, nuclear energy. And the type of energy that I would like to introduce, what I'm pushing, is not a energy which relies on uranium, but on thorium. Because thorium is the most abundant source of energy.
So your interest in energy,
of course.
Why energy? And is it a global trend right now?
Energy is absolutely everything. You cannot talk about anything if you don't have energy. For the thorium, for instance, the amount of energy that you have on thorium, it could satisfy 10 billion people for 20,000 times.
Wow.
And also, if you need an energy which doesn't really destroy the planet, I forgot to say that.
So,
clean.
Do you think, is there any research opportunities or collaboration for other scientists here?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's something that everybody needs. We need to solve this problem. I'm not the only one to push for this one, but you have people like Carlo Rubbia, you know, who is Nobel Prize winner also, and others, very, very smart people who are really also joining the game.
Thank you, Professor Muru.
Professor Vu Ha Van is the Percy F. Smith Professor of Mathematics and Professor of Data Science at Yale University and Scientific Director of VIN Big Data Institute. He is well known for his work in additive and probabilistic combinatorics, random matrix theory, and their applications in computational science. In addition to the famous projects on self-driving cars and virtual assistant VV in Vietnam, Professor Van is working on sequencing and analyzing Vietnamese genomes, building genetic variation databases for further research related to disease diagnosis and treatment.
Maybe we move on to Professor Vu Ha Van. Can you share with us what you are working on right now?
Yes, so my research is now, well, there are two fronts of it. So one which is very applicable, that we are doing projects which make products that apply to real life, like the voice assistant system, VV, and the genomic, data set, which you can use for treatment. On the more theoretical side, I care about the impact of noise on data. So every data we collect, a table, an Excel file, or a picture, usually disturbed by noise. So there's some blur in the picture, so that's the noise. But when the data is corrupted by noise, then that may impact your question. And so I want to measure the impact of that noise, and especially in the case that the noise is random, we discover new mathematical phenomenon, which is, I think, is of some value for applications in real life.
So how do you think, how can Vietnam make global connection in doing research?
Okay, so that is a tough question. We should have very strong research centers. That's the only way that people come to us to work because they care about our research, or they want to talk with the people, our people who work at the research center, not just because they want to, see Hanoi. Well, that's only one part of it. scientists are very open. They come for the value of the science itself. They don't really, have borders or prejudice about races or anything. So if we do interesting things, then people will come to us.
Dr. Anandan is a renowned researcher in computer vision and artificial intelligence, with more than 60 publications earning over 14,500 citations in Google Scholar. His career spans over 30 years in academia and industry in the US and India, with research areas including visual motion analysis, video surveillance, and 3D scene modeling from images and video in many giant tech firms such as Microsoft and Adobe. Dr. Anandan is currently founder of US-based AI Matters Advisors LLC and chairman of the governing board at Telangana AI Mission, TAIM.
Dr. Anandan, and you are the founder of the research lab. So can you share more about maybe the collaboration opportunities for scientists?
About 15 years ago, I was working in the US, but moved back to India to set up and build a research lab for Microsoft. And I did that for 10 years with the goal of creating a world-class computer science research laboratory based in India, and it has been very successful. In fact, I think my experience back when I went to build Microsoft Research is perhaps quite relevant for Vietnam in the current situation. In India, in computer science, although we had produced a large number of computer scientists, but computer science research and the number of publications and number of PhDs was quite small. And one thing I learned in my career is that creating a strong foundation for research requires a strong PhD education. In fact, I think training how to do research is really what you learn during PhD. And it's almost like you have to learn to think freely, and that requires some training. And working with top researchers is the only way to really learn how to do research. And that requires collaboration, especially given a country at that time like India did not have a lot of top scientists in computer science. We had to bring people from global entities, universities, companies, and bring collaboration as an important way of doing that. And I'm really glad when university is in there and it's hoping to step up and do these kind of things.
Dr. Bui Hai Hung is the CEO of Vin AI. Prior to joining Vin AI, he held critical positions at Google DeepMind, Adobe Research, and Nuance Natural Language Understanding Lab. He also spent almost a decade at the AI Center, SRI International, formerly Stanford Research Institute, where he led the multi-institution research team in developing probabilistic inference technologies for understanding user activities during the CALO project. It was the largest AI project at the time and led to Apple's Siri. His technical expertise and interests range from probabilistic graphical models, deep generative models, Bayesian inference to machine learning, with applications in human activity, intent recognition, video understanding, and natural language processing. Such interests revolve around one question: how to make machines understand humans better.
Professor Bui Hai Hung, you worked in the US and then you came back to Vietnam. So could you share with us a little bit about your reason to come back and what have you been doing?
So pretty much I've been working in the area of artificial intelligence for a long time, for more than 2 decades now. AI is a really interesting field because after you solve one problem, immediately you're faced with the next problem. For the last few years, my focus has been on more on understanding how to get the machine to learn more efficiently, more like human being, right? And less like the way AI is actually being built at the moment, which is you simply feed the training models with lots and lots of big but really raw data. I moved back to Vietnam in the last 3 years. I had the opportunity to found AI research lab in Vietnam. For the last 3 years, I had a chance to actually work on this really cutting-edge problem, but actually doing it with my colleagues here in Vietnam. Today, the lab is a really well-established research lab with research outputs that are on the same par of any top research institutes in the world. So
wow.
That's very exciting.
Impressive. Can you share maybe some of the projects or the invention coming out from your lab?
One of the topics that we are working on at VNAI, which is the name of the lab, is on this cutting edge of learning with less labeled data. How do you understand more about unsupervised learning? How do you understand about learning the representation, which is the essence of the data? Once you understand more about that, then the application is that you can actually then design machine learning and AI models that can be built with a lot less cost than what's being actually done right now.
From what I can see, Professor Vũ Hà Văn and Professor Bùi Hải Hưng worked in overseas for many years, and then you decided to come back to Vietnam. Is it because you want to serve your country, or does it come from some kind of aspiration? Can you explain more about the reason why you choose to do science here in Vietnam?
I came back to Vietnam quite regularly in the last 20 years. So every summer I was here and teaching at different universities. So I always want to work with the young scientists in Vietnam for a long time. And the last few years I spent more time here, and I found it a very promising and exciting opportunity, especially when we can explore the strength of the Vietnamese young scientists, and also the value of the Vietnamese data that we are collecting right now. From time to time, people ask me that, how to make the research in Vietnam stronger, like people from all levels. And I still believe that we need somebody to lead the projects that with some good vision and some support, either from the government or from private sector. And so I think that opportunity is quite unique, and yeah, that sort of helped me to make some of my decisions.
What about you, Professor Bùi Hải Hưng?
For us, who have been working, in the first world for a long time, we tend to look back to our home countries and just hope that one day something good would happen. And then basically, here comes a chance for me to actually come back to Vietnam to actually make it happen, right? So I think it turned out to be an opportunity that I can't refuse. Of course, in order to make that change, it comes with a lot of challenges. But yeah, it's started with a goal and with the persistence, and I think today we've got the results to show that, yeah, it can be done, and it paid off.
Well, thank you so much. And now the floor is open for questions from the audience.
Good morning. My name is Nguyễn Thị Châu Anh. I'm still a university student. Thank you so much for giving me an honor to standing here. My question is that which our topic is future opportunities and global connection. So how our technologies and artificial technology are helping to connect our world?
There's been a lot of really fantastic development in multiple areas in AI that I think can actually bring people closer together. One of them is machine translation, maybe decades ago, and the idea where I can speak in English and instantaneously the machine can actually translate to just about any other languages in the world. That's really mind-boggling, but it's actually a reality now. So as we bring down this language barrier, we won't be able to communicate a lot more efficiently. So I think that's one example, right? And yet we are only at the beginning because behaviors of us actually changing, right? So we no longer be surprised at the fact that we can actually just talk to someone on the other side of the world via Zoom or a video call. And all of that at the same time is with the meeting notes can actually be recorded down with AI and so on, right? And that's an example of how technology can be used.
I have an interesting observation. All of the scientists joining us here in this panel discussion are male. So what do you think about this, and what can we do to encourage more women to do science?
I was a director of graduate studies at my department for a few years. And the fact is that it's really tough to get graduate students, female graduate students into the system. And I think the problem doesn't, start here when you become like, established scientist. But it probably start rooted somewhere back in the high school or undergraduate years, that somehow we have to encourage more female students go into science. Because if I look at the applicants, actually the female applicants are as good as the male. We have to encourage the female students that, to show that the values of science and somehow generate the love of science to them.
So I have a slightly different observation. So this I observed when I went back to India to set up the lab, and when my manager came along with me, because I was trying to convince him that we should set up a lab. And we visited some universities, and he often said, there are a lot more women engineering students here compared to when I go to colleges in the US. And even here I see actually quite a lot of ladies. And one of the things is that in Asian countries, STEM education actually seems to be more valued, among women. And I think that's a starting point. I don't think it necessarily builds up all the way to a research career, but it's a good start. And I think role models in senior positions and a strong emphasis on STEM education is really the foundation. And I have a feeling Vietnam can do well on this.
Well, thank you so much. Professor Muru?
I shared my Nobel Prize with a student, Donna Strickland, who was the third woman getting a Nobel Prize. In physics, Donna was very good, obviously a very good student. And, but I mean, you have to work on it. You have to work on it. Getting into an experimental lab, not easy for them, but I mean, something which is not used to normally for a woman. But anyway, I mean, we can do it. This is not going to stay like that.
Right.
We are going to see more women.
Yeah, and I believe that we will have more and more female scientists winning prestigious awards.
My name is Dung, and I come from Wien University. I just have one question. How actually the Wien future support for the future opportunities and then to connect, the audience here in terms of the global landscape. Thank you so much.
One of the panelists here, he was essentially saying that for collaboration to happen, then you need to get two groups of people to think about the same thing. I completely agree with that. As a young researcher or a young student, I often wonder myself, like, how do I get to collaborate with, some of these really well-known people in the field? I think, and I still believe today, that if the international academia in any field, they are focusing on this particular problem, then you have to think about the same problem. Right? And then that's kind of like gives you the basis in being able to actually talk to them, and that could actually lead to some potential collaboration. Right? But yeah, essentially, in order to do that, I think you would also want to start embarking on research problems. Work on the research problems that the international community actually cares about at the moment.
Well, thank you to all of our distinguished guests today for your very insightful sharing, and we feel very much inspired by it. Thank you so much. So the important takeaways here from our esteemed scientists is, as long as you have passion, determination, self-motivation, and an open mind for learning, you can become a scientist and you can contribute to humanity in your own way. That's also the message that we want to deliver through our Talk Vietnam today. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.